The caller went on before I was fully awake. I felt the cold ring close around my throat and the small magnetic click of the leads finding the base of my skull, and only then did my eyes open enough to see the room. Gray walls. A drain in the floor. 4 armed shapes moving with the unhurried precision of people who had done this before and expected to do it again. "You are restrained," the nearest one said, in the flat, over-careful cadence of a translator chip. "The tether reads aggression and suppresses it before it reaches your limbs. You cannot harm anyone in this room." I didn't say anything. I checked my hands instead, could still close them, could still feel the chair arms under my palms, and decided the caller was lying to itself, not to me. The one speaking introduced himself as Warden Engineer Olin Vey. Gray-skinned, 4 arms folded in pairs, the kind of patient stillness that comes from believing the variables are already accounted for. Behind him, 2 juniors watched a bank of readouts that I assumed were watching me. "You were taken in the corridor sweep at Halvern Reach," Vey said. "Border control. You resisted 3 officers before subdual. They grabbed me first. Irrelevant. The tether will correct for that instinct going forward." He gestured, and the collar warmed half a degree against my skin, a calibration pulse, I'd guess now, though at the time it just felt like a held breath. "We are not cruel. We are precise. Sit still, and this will be brief." I sat still. That part wasn't hard. I'd been sitting still through worse than this since I was 19. They began with baseline questions: point of origin, designation, intent. I answered the ones that cost me nothing and let the rest sit. Every silence, he logged. Every log, the junior at the console called out a number, and Vey nodded like the number meant something he already knew. "Tether load at 6%, the junior said. "Subject shows no resistance spike." "Compliant," Vey said, almost gentle. "Good." It wasn't compliance. It was math. I'd already counted exits, 1 door, 1 vent grill loose at the corner, 1 creth between me and both, and decided none of it mattered yet. There was nothing to do yet. So I did nothing, and the caller took the credit. They moved me to a second room 20 minutes later, longer table, brighter light, 3 more engineers crowded around a rig with a single cable running from the wall straight into the back of my collar. They introduced it as a load test. He didn't ask permission. He didn't need to, in his accounting of the room. "We will increase suppression demand incrementally," he said, "to map the threshold at which the tether must intervene." The first jolt was a pressure behind my eyes, not pain exactly, more like a held note finally let go. My jaw tightened. I let it. "Tether load at 30, the junior read. "No behavioral deviation. Increase to 50. The second jolt was worse. My hands wanted to move. I let them sit instead, flat on the table, because moving them wouldn't get me anywhere yet, and I have never once in my life done a thing simply because my body asked nicely. 50 held, the junior said, and there was something in his voice now that wasn't quite confidence. "Sustained heart rate is with Warden, her pulse hasn't changed since intake. Pulse lags behavior," Vey said. "It will catch up. Try a threat frequency band. Auditory only, no contact." They piped a tone into the room through a speaker bolted near the ceiling, pitched low, then climbing, the kind of sound built into a species hearing on purpose, meant to sit in the back of the skull like a held alarm. I'd heard worse on a transport hull losing pressure. I let my shoulders stay where they were and watched the readout instead of listening to the tone, which seemed to bother the junior more than the actual noise did. "No change," he said, quieter this time, like he didn't want to be the one saying it again. "Add cold," Vey said. "Drop ambient temperature 8 degrees. Discomfort compounds suppression load." The room chilled fast enough that I saw my breath before I felt it on my skin. My hands stiffened at the fingertips. I tucked them under my forearms, which probably read on their instruments as a defensive posture, and let them think that was a result if it made the next number easier to write down. It wasn't easier. The junior read it anyway, and his voice cracked on the second digit. Increase to 70, Vey said. Direct provocation parameters. A second junior, younger, the one who hadn't spoken yet, leaned toward Vey and said something too low for me to catch. Vey's only answer was a short gesture, 2 fingers closing, which I took to mean later, or don't. The junior didn't push it. I noted that too. Whatever he'd seen in the readouts, he decided it wasn't his place to be the one who said it out loud first. That part one remember clean, because that's where they brought in the second prisoner. He was Kreth, a deserter, they said, restrained the same way I was, shoved into the chair across from me with his own collar already humming. Vey explained, in the same level voice he'd used for everything else, that combined subject stress testing produced sharper threshold data. He told the deserter, not me, to attack. The deserter didn't want to. I could see that much in the set of his shoulders before the collar made the decision for him, a small flinch, then his arm swinging at my face with no will behind it at all. I caught his wrist an inch from my jaw. Didn't break it. Just held it there, mid-air, the way you'd hold a door that someone else was trying to close. The room went quiet in a specific way, not silence, but the particular hush of people recalculating. Tether load at 70, the junior said, and his voice had gone thin. Warden, her tether reading is flat. It has been flat since intake. We're suppressing nothing. There was never a resistance spike to suppress. Vey didn't move for a moment. I respected that, a little. Most people, told the floor isn't there, reach for it anyway. Recalibrate the leads, he said instead. The instrument is faulty. They recalibrated. Twice. The second time, one of the juniors swapped the entire collar housing for a spare from a locked cabinet, checked the connection against a reference unit, and ran the test cold from 0. The numbers came back the same both times, because the numbers had never been measuring me, they'd been measuring a wire that ran from my collar to a panel that did nothing but light up green when I chose not to bother. I let go of the deserter's wrist. He pulled it back like it had burned him, and would not meet my eyes. Increase to maximum, Vey said, quieter now. Not an order born of confidence anymore, an order born of needing to finish the sentence he'd started. The collar at full load felt like standing too close to a furnace with my back turned. My vision blurred at the edges. My hands, finally, did want to move, and I let exactly one of them, the right, reach up, slow, almost polite, and unclip the lead at the base of my skull. It came away with a soft click, the same sound it had made going on. Nobody in that room moved to stop me. I think, by then, they understood it wouldn't have changed anything if they had. It was never wired to anything load-bearing, I said, setting the lead on the table between us, gentle, the way you'd return something that was never yours to take. You built a switch and called it a leash. Vey looked at the dead readout, then at me, then at the deserter still rubbing his wrist 3 seats down. He didn't shout. He didn't reach for a weapon. He did the thing his training had built him to do when a model failed cleanly. He reached for a stylus and began, very carefully, to write down that it had. I stood up. Nobody stopped that either. The 2 junior engineers had already stepped back from the console, the way you step back from an instrument that's told you the truth and you'd rather it hadn't. Designation, Vey said, not looking up from the report. For the record. Lena Ashworth. I said it plainly, the way I'd say anything else true. You can put down that the subject was never restrained. Just compliant, for as long as compliant cost nothing. I walked to the door they hadn't locked, because the lock had never been the thing holding me there, and I let myself out into a corridor with no collar warming my throat and no one behind me deciding it was worth the trouble to follow.